He loved his wife more than life itself. But because she couldn't give him a child, he hired a maid
My
and
stomach!
secretly got her pregnant.
Please help
What
me!
started as a desperate plan turned into a forbidden love. But when the wife found out, she did something so cruel, it left the entire city in tears. The Caldwell estate sat like a crown jewel in the heart of Miami's elite district, a sprawling mansion with glass walls, manicured gardens, and a silence that echoed louder than any storm. Inside, Blake Caldwell, 45, tech billionaire and founder of a global cybersecurity firm, stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, staring out at the ocean. His tailored suit clung to his broad shoulders, but his eyes were tired. He had everything: wealth, power, prestige, except the one thing he wanted most, a child. His wife, Vanessa Caldwell, 39, was the embodiment of elegance. A former model turned philanthropist, she was adored by the media and envied by society. But behind closed doors, she carried a pain that no camera could capture. After years of failed IVF treatments and miscarriages, her body had given up. And so had her spirit. Blake loved her deeply. But the silence between them had grown unbearable. That's when the idea of hiring a live-in maid came up. Vanessa wanted help around the house. Blake saw an opportunity, one he never spoke aloud. He wanted someone young, healthy, and fertile. Someone who could give him what Vanessa couldn't. Enter Jasmine Taylor, 27, a curvy, soft-spoken woman with caramel skin, almond eyes, and a quiet grace. She had recently moved from Georgia, escaping a troubled past and looking for a fresh start. She was hired for her professionalism, but her beauty was undeniable. Vanessa liked her instantly. "She's gentle," she told Blake. "She makes the house feel alive." But Blake saw something else. Something dangerous. And so began the quiet unraveling of a perfect life. The air inside the mansion was thick with quiet tension. Vanessa had gone out for a charity gala, her usual escape from the grief that clung to her like perfume. Blake stayed behind, claiming he had work to finish. But his mind wasn't on business. Jasmine moved through the house like a whisper. Her presence was soft, but Blake noticed everything. The way her hips swayed beneath her cotton dress, the way her eyes lingered when they met his. She was respectful, always professional. But there was something unspoken between them. A current. A pull. That night, Blake sat in the dimly lit sitting room, nursing a glass of scotch. Jasmine entered quietly, holding a tray of tea. "Mrs. Caldwell said you might need this," she said, her voice gentle. He looked up. "Thank you, Jasmine." She placed the tray down, but didn't leave. Instead, she sat across from him, her fingers nervously twisting the hem of her dress. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Of course." "Why did you really hire me?" Blake hesitated. The truth was dangerous. But something in her eyes made him speak. "Because I needed someone who could bring life back into this house." Jasmine's breath caught. She looked away, but her cheeks flushed. "I didn't mean to make things complicated," he added. "You didn't," she whispered. "I did." The silence between them was no longer empty. It was charged. Heavy. And when their eyes met again, it was clear. Something had shifted. Neither of them moved. But the damage was already done. Outside, the wind rustled the palm trees. Inside, two hearts beat faster than they should. And upstairs, Vanessa's perfume still lingered in the air. The morning sun spilled through the glass walls of the Caldwell mansion, painting everything in gold. But inside, the air was heavy. Jasmine stood in the kitchen, her hands trembling as she poured coffee. She hadn't slept. Not after last night. She kept replaying the moment, the way Blake looked at her, the way her heart raced, the way she didn't pull away. Nothing had happened. Not yet. But something had shifted. And it scared her. Vanessa entered the room, dressed in silk and pearls, her smile radiant. "Good morning, sweetheart," she said, kissing Blake on the cheek. Jasmine looked away. "I was thinking," Vanessa continued, "we should take Jasmine with us to the fundraiser next week. She's part of the family now." Blake nodded, but his eyes lingered on Jasmine. She felt it. And it made her stomach twist. Later that day, Jasmine tried to avoid him. She cleaned the guest rooms, folded laundry, scrubbed the marble floors. anything to stay busy. But Blake found her in the hallway. "Are you okay?" he asked. "I'm fine," she lied. "You're not," he said softly. "I crossed a line. I shouldn't have." Jasmine's eyes welled up. "I don't want to hurt her," she whispered. "I know," Blake said. "But I can't stop thinking about you." She turned away, her voice breaking. "This isn't right." "I know," he said again. "But it feels like the only thing that is." Their words hung in the air like smoke. Jasmine walked away, but her heart stayed behind. Upstairs, Vanessa hummed to herself, blissfully unaware. But the walls of the mansion were beginning to whisper. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Vanessa had flown to New York for a weekend charity event. Blake stayed behind, citing business meetings. But there were no meetings. Just silence. And temptation. Jasmine stood in the hallway, wearing a simple robe, her hair damp from a shower. She had just finished cleaning the guest suite when she heard Blake's voice from the sitting room. "Jasmine," he called softly. She hesitated, then walked in. He was seated on the edge of the couch, shirt unbuttoned, eyes heavy with something she couldn't name. "I couldn't sleep," he said. "Me neither," she replied. The room was dimly lit, the only light coming from the fireplace. Jasmine sat across from him, her robe clinging to her curves. Blake's eyes lingered, too long. She noticed. And didn't look away. "I keep thinking about you," he said, voice low. "Don't," she whispered. "It's wrong." "I know," he said. "But I can't help it." Silence. Heavy. Charged. Jasmine stood up, as if to leave. But her feet didn't move. Blake rose too, slowly, like gravity was pulling him toward her. They stood inches apart. Breathing. Trembling. "I don't want to hurt her," Jasmine said. "You won't," Blake replied. "She'll never know." And then, it happened. Okish. Soft. Desperate. Years of loneliness poured into a single moment. Clothes fell. Hearts raced. And in the quiet of the night, two broken souls found comfort in each other's arms. But comfort has a cost. And upstairs, in Vanessa's untouched bedroom, her wedding photo stared down from the wall, smiling unaware. Jasmine stood in front of the mirror, her hand resting gently on her stomach. It had been 2 weeks since that night, the night everything changed. She hadn't told Blake. She hadn't told anyone. But she knew. Her body was changing. Her heart was racing. She was pregnant. The guilt was unbearable. She had betrayed Vanessa, the woman who had welcomed her into her home, treated her like family. Jasmine had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. And now, she carried the consequence inside her. Vanessa, meanwhile, had started to notice the shift. Jasmine was quieter. Distant. Blake was distracted. He barely looked her in the eye anymore. At dinner, the silence was louder than ever. One evening, Vanessa sat alone in the garden, sipping wine. Jasmine walked by, and Vanessa called out to her. "Are you okay?" she asked. Jasmine nodded quickly. "Just tired." Vanessa studied her. "You've been glowing lately. Are you seeing someone?" Jasmine's heart stopped. "No," she said too quickly. Vanessa smiled, but her eyes didn't. "You know you can talk to me, right?" Jasmine nodded again, then walked away, her legs trembling. Inside, Blake watched from the window. He knew. He could see it in Jasmine's eyes. But he hadn't said a word. Not yet. Later that night, Jasmine packed a small bag. She couldn't stay. She had to leave before the truth destroyed everything. But as she reached the front door, Vanessa appeared behind her. "Going somewhere?" she asked, voice calm but cold. Jasmine froze. And in that moment, the walls of the mansion seemed to close in. Vanessa sat in her home office, staring at the screen of her laptop. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, trembling slightly. She had just finished a video call with her therapist, one of many she'd been having lately. The topic was always the same: her marriage, her body, her silence. But today, something felt different. She had noticed Jasmine's growing belly. The way she moved slower. The way her clothes fit tighter. And the way Blake looked at her. like he used to look at Vanessa years ago. Vanessa wasn't stupid. She had seen enough betrayal in her modeling days to know when something was off. And this was more than off. It was personal. She opened a private browser tab and searched, how to conduct a secret paternity test. The results flooded in. She clicked quickly, reading instructions, making notes. She needed a sample. Something discreet. Something Jasmine wouldn't notice. Later that day, she offered Jasmine a fresh towel. "You look warm," she said sweetly. Jasmine smiled, grateful. Vanessa watched her wipe her face, then quietly tucked the towel away. That night, Vanessa drove to a private lab in Coral Gables. She handed over the towel and paid extra for expedited results. "I need to know," she whispered. 3 days later, the email arrived. Vanessa opened it slowly, her heart pounding. Paternity confirmed. Blake Caldwell was the father. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just stared at the screen, her face blank. Then she closed the laptop, stood up, and walked to the kitchen. She began boiling water. The kitchen was filled with the hiss of boiling water. Vanessa stood over the stove, her hands steady, her face unreadable. The pot bubbled violently, steam rising like smoke from a fire that had been burning inside her for weeks. She had seen the test. She had seen the truth. Blake had betrayed her. Jasmine had betrayed her. And now, the child growing inside that woman, that maid, was the living proof of her failure. Vanessa carried the pot carefully, her heels clicking against the marble floor. She moved like a ghost, silent and focused. Upstairs, Jasmine was folding laundry in the guest room, humming softly to herself. She hadn't told Blake yet. She was waiting for the right moment. But the moment found her first. The door burst open. Jasmine turned, startled. "Mrs. Caldwell?" Vanessa didn't speak. Her eyes were wild, her breath shallow. She raised the pot. "Wait, what are you doing?" Jasmine backed away, her hands raised. "You took everything from me," Vanessa hissed. "Everything. Please don't." But the scream that followed echoed through the mansion like a siren. Blake came running, his heart pounding. He found Jasmine on the floor, clutching her stomach, her skin blistered and red. The pot lay beside her, still steaming. Vanessa stood frozen, her hands shaking. "What did you do?" Blake roared. "She deserved it." Vanessa screamed. "She stole you. She stole my life." Blake dropped to his knees beside Jasmine. "Call 911, he shouted. "Now." Vanessa didn't move. She just stared at the blood on the floor. At the woman who carried the child she never could. And for the first time in years, she felt something. Power. But it wouldn't last. The sterile white walls of Miami General Hospital felt colder than usual. Jasmine lay in a private suite, her body wrapped in bandages, her skin blistered from the attack. Nurses moved quietly around her, checking vitals, adjusting IVs. But nothing could soothe the ache in her heart. The baby was safe. Somehow, miraculously, the child had survived. But Jasmine hadn't. Not fully. She stared at the ceiling, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. Her body hurt. Her soul hurt more. She had trusted Vanessa. She had loved Blake. And now she was scarred, inside and out. Blake sat beside her, his face hollow. He hadn't left her side since the ambulance arrived. He held her hand gently, afraid to squeeze too hard. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. Jasmine didn't respond. "I should have protected you." She turned her head slowly. "You shouldn't have lied to her." Blake nodded, ashamed. "I know." Outside the room, reporters had already caught wind of the story. Billionaire's wife accused of attempted murder. The headlines were brutal. The scandal was spreading. Vanessa had been arrested. Her mugshot was everywhere. But she refused to speak. Her lawyer claimed mental instability. Her fans claimed betrayal. Her world was collapsing. Blake's wasn't far behind. "I'll take care of you," he said to Jasmine. "You and the baby. I promise." She looked at him, eyes filled with pain. "I don't need promises. I need peace." And for the first time Blake realized, love wasn't enough. Not anymore. The mansion was quiet again. But this time, it wasn't peaceful. It was hollow. Blake stood in the grand foyer, staring at the staircase where Vanessa once descended like royalty. Her belongings had been packed. Her name removed from the foundation she built. Her face erased from the family portraits. She was gone. The court hearing had been swift. Vanessa pleaded guilty to aggravated assault. Her lawyers pushed for psychiatric evaluation. Blake didn't fight it. He didn't speak. He just watched as the woman he once loved was led away in handcuffs. Now he stood alone, except for Jasmine. She entered the room slowly, her steps careful, her body still healing. Her face was softer now, but her eyes held pain. She had been quiet since the hospital. She didn't ask for anything. She didn't expect forgiveness. Blake turned to her. "I've made a decision," he said. Jasmine nodded, bracing herself. "I filed for divorce. Vanessa is no longer part of this house. Of this life." Jasmine's lips parted, but no words came. "I want to marry you," Blake continued. "Not because of the baby. Not because of guilt. But because you're the only person who's ever made this house feel like home." Tears welled in Jasmine's eyes. "I don't know if I'm ready." "I'll wait," Blake said. "As long as it takes." Outside, the press waited for a statement. Inside, Blake knelt before Jasmine, placing his hand gently on her belly. "I failed you," he whispered. "But I won't fail our child." And for the first time in weeks, Jasmine smiled. Not because the pain was gone, but because love had finally chosen her. The waves crashed gently against the shore as the sun dipped below the horizon. Blake stood barefoot in the sand, holding a tiny bundle wrapped in soft blue cotton. His son, Elijah Caldwell, slept peacefully in his arms, unaware of the storm that had brought him into the world. Beside him, Jasmine sat on a blanket, her skin still marked by scars, but her spirit stronger than ever. She had healed, slowly, painfully, but she had healed. And now, she was a mother. A wife. A survivor. They had married quietly, away from the cameras and headlines. No press. No guests. Just vows whispered beneath a palm tree and tears that spoke louder than words. Blake looked down at Elijah, then at Jasmine. "He has your eyes," he said softly. Jasmine smiled. "And your stubbornness." They laughed. The kind of laugh that only comes after heartbreak. The kind that feels like freedom. Vanessa had been sentenced to a rehabilitation facility. Blake visited once. She didn't speak. Just stared out the window, her face pale, her eyes empty. He left without saying goodbye. Now, standing on the beach with his new family, Blake felt something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. "I never thought I'd get here," Jasmine whispered. "Neither did I," Blake replied. "But we did." As the sun disappeared, Elijah stirred, letting out a soft cry. Jasmine took him gently, cradling him against her chest. Blake wrapped his arm around them both. And for the first time, the mansion on Willow Ridge wasn't just a house. It was a home.